We also want to make sure that you're properly educated about taxes, which is why I'm here today. Because in order for you to pay the right amount of tax at the right time, you have to have the right information. So it's a win-win for us, right? We educate you, you pay us, and we're both happy. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, so what do? We follow a lot of what goes on with the federal government. You have to remember there are three branches for tax. There's the federal, state, and local. So when you get a letter in the mail from the tax department, you have to understand where that letter is coming from. It's not necessarily coming from the state, right? It could say Internal Revenue Service. That's the federal. It could say state. So when you open the letter, you have to be able to say, where am I going to respond to? And you have to know that the different branches have different rules. Just because the IRS has certain rules, it doesn't mean we have those same rules. We have different rules. Some of the rules are the same, some are different. So you might have to go to the federal website, you might have to go to the state website so that you're properly educated. New York State income starts with federal income tax return. So we also conform with the Internal Revenue Code regarding your business entity. What does that mean? When you start a business, you have to decide what type of business you're going to be. Are you going to operate a store on your own? And if you are, that means you're a sole proprietor. Maybe you decide that you don't want somebody to come in your store, and if they slip and fall, they can go after you and all your assets. So you'll see that some people will see LLC, Limited Liability Company after their name, or Limited Liability Partnership, LLP. Why do people do that? Because they want limited liability. So if I come into your store and something happens, I will only go after the limited liability in the company, not after everything. So that's why people have the LLC and LLP. So once you decide you're going to be an LLP or LLC or sole proprietor, that's for everything. That's for local, city, and state. You can't be one entity for the city and a different entity for the state and a different entity for the feds. You have to be the same entity for all branches. The agency that you go to, once you determine what entity you're going to be, is the Department of State. So the Department of State handles all licenses, right? So you'll see if you decide to be an LLC or LLP, you go to them. Also, you need, as a business, a federal employer identification number. That allows you to work around the different agencies in the state. So if you have an issue with the Department of Labor or Department of Health or the tax department, you'll see everyone gets that federal employer identification number. If you work for someone and you're filling out your taxes, it asks you for that federal employer identification number. That's how we identify businesses. A little later, I'm going to talk about the sales tax certificate. That's different from the federal employer identification number. When you start a business, you have to go to the IRS website, irs.gov, and get a federal employer identification number. And it's called the SSS-4 form. That's what you use. That's why you'll see different branches of government working together. It's not like the tax department's giving you all the information. You know, you go to the IRS for that. As you see there, you use the federal identification number for all New York State tax filing requirements. Conducting business in New York. So we start with the federal income tax return, except if you're a sole proprietor. If somebody's a sole proprietor, then they can just use their personal income tax form, and then they put down their business income. So if you're a sole proprietor, you'd be attaching a Schedule C. Partnerships have to file an annual partnership return for the IT-204, and each partner reports their share of their partnership income on all their personal income tax returns. All corporations are required to pay a minimum franchise fee for New York State for doing business in the state. So everyone has to do that. If you decide to be a limited liability company, you go to the Department of State, and you have to pay an annual fee 60 days after the end of the tax year. As a business owner, you need to understand your New York State tax responsibilities. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to our website. So, because it's very helpful just to take you to our website, because it lets you see how you can actually use our website for education to make yourself more informed on how to conduct business in New York State. So as you can see here, home, individual's business. So that was online services. You can manage your business account online. What you would do is you'd create an account. So if you don't have an account already, you'd go in, you'd create an account, and this would walk you through how to create an account. Let's say you don't know how to create an account. So you could watch a demo about how to create an account. It shows you right online what do you need to do. So you could watch a demo on it. These are all the demos and videos that we have here. And now, why is this important? Why is this website important? It's important because you can create an online account. When you create an online account, it allows you to manage your account online. Kind of like if you have a bank card, I have a Bank of America card, I created a username and password, I can view my bills, my statements, I can get alerts. That's what this allows you to do as well. Also, there's other features that are important. Let's say you sell stuff around the state. New York State has a 4% sales tax rate for the entire state, but each locality has a different rate on top of the 4%. What does that mean? Let's say I'm a traveling salesperson. Some days I'm in Manhattan, some days I'm in Buffalo, some days I'm in Syracuse. There's a 4% rate, but every time I sell something in a different area, the rate changes. There's a jurisdiction rate lookup that's based on your zip code. Because remember, there's a 4% rate, but then sales tax is based on point of delivery. That's why if you go to Florida and you get an item delivered, there's no sales tax in Florida, right? But remember, in New York, it's based on point of delivery, and a lot of times you don't pay attention because if you order something from a store like Macy's or something, it automatically calculates it for you, right? But if you're a small business, you're starting out, you have to know your responsibilities and saying there's the 4% rate, but then additionally there's the local rate. So this allows you to look up properties such as what your sales tax rate is. So what other features does it have? So you could visit the website. There are forms and instructions. We'll go back there. You can see here for businesses. There are forms and instructions. So every single form, as you can see here, there are sales tax forms on here with each instructions. There's a tax in New York City called the Metropolitan Commuter Transportation Mobility Tax. If you live in New York City, or if you live somewhere else and you come and do work in the 5 boroughs or the surrounding counties, you have to pay a tax on payroll. So that means if you have employees, you pay it on the payroll. If you're self-employed and you make over $50,000 annually, you pay a percentage on that. So that's information on what the Metropolitan Commuter Tax is. The forms are also listed on our website. Online services, which I just showed you. You can make payments online through that online service center. All the rules on tax laws and administrative updates, that's on here as well. So going to the next slide. You'll find information on e-file mandates. If you own a business and you have broadband access and you don't use a tax professional, you have to file those forms online. There are also certain things that have to be filed online now, like sales tax. Sales tax has to be filed online through the online service center. Withholding tax, which is the tax on employees, that has to be filed online. If you're starting a business, there's information on that, which I'll talk about, and expanding a business. What if you hire employees? What if you decide to hire employees? If you decide to hire employees, you have to tell the tax department within 20 days of hiring that employee. Why? Because remember, when you have an employee, you have to withhold taxes from that employee and give them to the government. So at least 20 days after you hire an employee, you have to tell us. The other thing is, what if you hire an employee, they go to school or something. So you let them go and then they come back next summer. You have to tell the department again because you're rehiring the employee. So even when you rehire someone or when you hire someone, you have to tell us. You have to let us know that you've rehired the employee. Yep, I should start that right. What is an employee? An employee is someone who performs services for you, and you can control what they do. We follow the federal guidelines of who an employee, and withholding tax is a trust tax. So as a responsible person, you become personally liable for the payment of the withholding taxes. As soon as you hire an employee or you rehire an employee, you're responsible for that withholding tax for that employee to remit that to the tax department. New York sales tax. This is a checklist. Now, what if you're going to be selling stuff, right? You have a business, you're selling stuff. Now, obviously, not every business sells things, right? Some people consulting services, contracting services. Some people are nonprofits. If you're going to be selling anything that's taxable, and we have a booklet that shows you everything that's taxable, you have to register for a sales tax certificate of authority. Now, I'm going to show you where you do that. So this is the New York State License Center. This allows you to basically use, you can see here, anything that you need, any permit, registration, if you're a restaurant, a motor vehicle operation, repair shop, beauty salon. This provides you with the information of what licenses and permits that you need. This website is helpful because it provides you with some of that information I was talking about. What type of business structure are you going to have, right? Are you going to be a sole proprietor? That's the simplest form. Are you going to be a partnership, right? A partnership, if you and I decide to have a business, we're a partnership. This provides you with information in terms of what you need, because if you're going to be a partnership, as you can see here, there's fees, $25 plus $4 or $5 for each certified copies, and then there's an additional $100 fee in New York City, as you can see there. What if you're a limited partnership, a limited liability partnership? There's a $200 fee, and remember, a limited liability company, there's fees and fines. So that's why it's important to use this license center to help you. Now, if you're going to be a business, the other important information is there's a business wizard here, and we're going to walk through that. So what does that mean? So we could start by putting an example of what we're going to be. So choose a business. What business do we want to choose? A bookstore. Let's say we want to open a bookstore, right? So where do we want to open it? We want to open it in Queens, right? So we'll go down here to Queens County, because that's where we're going to open the store. And what happens next? So what do you need? We have to select what we're going to be, right? Remember, do you want to be a corporation, limited liability partner? What do we want to choose? Or we don't know. Let's say we don't know what type of business. We could just say undecided. You don't have to know. If you'd like to get additional information, you could decide that you want information on being a partnership, being a sole proprietor, being a limited liability company, and then you go to the next button. So you could choose the number of employees. How many employees are you going to have? Let's say we're going to have 1 to 10. It's going to be a small business, right? It's going to be new. Since we're new, we want information about employer obligations, right? Do we plan on purchasing the existing business? Are we purchasing a new bookstore, or are we purchasing one that somebody owns? So if you're purchasing an existing one, yes. You also can request additional information. You see all of this information that you can request. Let's say you want financial assistance for your business. You can select that right there. Will you sell new books or magazines? Yes. Do we want to sell food at our store? You can decide. So maybe we'll have some food there. Maybe we'll sell records too. So this basically, for every business, you can walk through this wizard, as you can see here. So you've completed business, and you have a business wizard ID. So you could see here, as a business owner, you should be aware of local laws. It gives you the website to go to in Queens. It gives you the Queens County clerk information, because you have to contact the county clerk. But you saw how before we got here, you had to choose the business you wanted, what information you wanted to receive, and then it tells you where you can go. it tells you that because you're going to be selling food in the bookstore, you're required to have a food service permit, right? So you need to get that from the Department of Health, not the tax department, Department of Health. Then it also tells you that because you're going to be selling something that's taxable, you have to get a certificate of authority. And remember I told you, you have to get an employer identification number from the feds. That tells you that here. Now, you're not sure what you want to be, but you might want to, this will provide you with different information of which ones you could have, because we didn't know. I said I didn't know what I wanted to be yet. This tells you that because you're going to have employees, by law, you have to have disability coverage, employment insurance, and workers' compensation, because you're going to have employees. But then it provides you with other useful links. So that's all here. So you can apply online for selected applications. All of that's available here for you. And now, for tax, because obviously I'm here to talk about tax, but I wanted to show you all the information that you can benefit from throughout the state government. So we need a sales tax certificate of authority, and you can apply online for a sales tax certificate of authority. So this is where you'd sign in. You don't have an account yet, right? You're new. So it will let you create an account. Now you might already have an account, because if you've ever renewed your driver's license or you filed your taxes online, you could already have an account and you'd use that information here. So this website, as you can see, is very, very important for you, very resourceful. So we talked about hiring employees, remember 20 days. We talked about sales tax, right? Sales tax, what's important to remember? You have to get the sales tax certificate of authority, right? From where? The Business License Center website. You have to create a username and password if you don't have a Gov ID, and that's the DTF 17. You have to file and pay your returns through our sales tax web file. What does that mean? That means that you have to go to the tax department website and file and pay your sales tax. So we're going to go back to the tax department website. Register for sales tax, look at right there. So that tells you here what you need to do. Sales tax web file, right? You're required to do that online. You can log into web file. You could create a username, and it provides you with all the information you need. Now, the other available features on sales tax web file is you can schedule payments in advance. You can save bank account information so that you're not going in each time. You're not going in each time to put in your information, and you could receive instant confirmation. Sorry, I keep standing up and sitting down, on when it was received. You can also view filing and payment history and update your business information. So if you're required by law, if you're required to pay sales tax, to do that sales tax web file online. So that's important to know. Taxable sales are anything that's retail, specifically enumerated services, food and catering. Those are all things that are required that you use that sales tax web file for. Now, next we're going to talk about hiring employees, sales tax web file. As I stated, you're going to need that sales tax certificate of authority, and you'll see that, right? When you go to stores and they're selling items, you'll see that printed certificate. If you have multiple locations, you still have to have a copy of that sales tax certificate of authority somewhere visible for us to see if we were going to come in. So that's something that you always have to have. There are different sales tax bulletins that we have. For every industry, we have a different bulletin because every industry has different tax laws. What does that mean? I'll give you some examples. Let's say I have a corner store, right? And I sell hot dogs, I sell hamburgers, I sell ice cream. These are things I prepare. I make hot dogs for you, I make hamburgers, I make ice cream, I make salads. I also sell those items packaged. So you can come in my store and get a package of ice cream, a package of hot dogs, a package of buns. The tricky part is some of those items are taxable, some of them are not. When something's prepared food, it's taxable. When it's not, it's not. So if I come in and buy ice cream in a container and hot dogs on a bun, and hot dogs and their package, it's not taxable. But if it's prepared, it's taxable. So every single industry has different rules, and you have to know the different rules for the industry. So are both of you business owners? No? Okay. So when you decide to have your business, you have to say, okay, what type of industry I'm going to be in, because I have to know the rules that are specific to my industry. So that's very important. So what's a taxable sale? Anything that's tangible, if you're selling that, services of those tangible products, any enumerated services, any sales of food and drink by caterers, heated food, like I said, that's all taxable. Collecting sales tax, like I said, is based on point of delivery. So if you have something here and you're sending it to Florida, it's based on what you're delivering, remember. And if you're selling things and delivering it to different places in New York State, you need to know what the local tax rate is on where you're delivering the item. What if you have a store and some of the items, like I said, are taxable, some are not, right? When you have your invoice, you have to separate that out, right? Because as a customer, not everything's taxable. And also, I need to know, the tax department needs to know what's taxable and what's not taxable. You have to indicate if that's exempt. Use tax. Your business might have to pay a use tax. What does that mean? A use tax is for things that you could purchase in New York State that are purchased outside of New York State for use in New York. What does that mean? What if I have a store, a computer store? I go to New Jersey or Connecticut because I heard they were having a big sale on computers. So I went there and bought a whole bunch of computers for my store in New York. I'm responsible for a use tax. Why? Because remember, when I went to New Jersey, I paid the sales tax in New Jersey, right? But because I bought the items for use in New York State, and I could have bought the items in New York State for use in New York State, I'm now required a use tax. Now, the thing is, you have to pay that tax as an individual. When you have your personal income tax forms, we always ask, did you purchase items out of New York online for use here that you didn't pay tax on? And think about it. You buy stuff from Macy's, you pay the tax. But when you buy stuff from eBay and other vendors, sometimes they don't pay the tax. So it's your responsibility to pay that. Sometimes you have exemption certificates. So let's say that you bought something, you might buy something from a wholesaler and then you're going to resell it. You're not paying the tax twice. So if you're going to be providing someone with an exemption certificate, you're usually required to do that within 90 days. What if I buy a business from someone? You have a great business, a shoe store, right? Right on Main Street. And you tell me, Muisa, I have this great shoe store for you, $2,000. And you get all the shoes in the building. You seem like a nice person, right? So I should just give you my money, right? No. Even if it's a family member, a friend, they seem like a nice person. What if she didn't tell me her dirty little tax secret? She owed $1 million to the tax department. The minute I give her money for her business and all the assets, that's my responsibility. So before, at least 10 days before I plan to purchase the business or any of the assets, I should contact the tax department. Why? Because we'll tell you she owes that money, because the minute I purchase it, it's my liability. And it can be your friend, it could be a family member, it could be your mentor. You want to make sure that you're protected. At least 20 days before you acquire a part of an existing business, you should apply for a new certificate. So that's also required by law. These are the filing requirements for sales tax, as you could see there. When you become, you register as a sales tax vendor, you're automatically filing quarterly. So those are the due dates. If we see that you're making less than $3,000 a year, you become an annual filer. We send you a letter and you become an annual filer. If your taxable receipts and purchases subject to use tax is $300,000 or more in a quarter, you must file monthly. A self-employed individual must be aware that they're required to file and pay estimated taxes, and that's the IT 2105. and these are the due dates for it. In the future, through our online services, you're going to be able to see that your past statements and future statements. Sales tax. Even if you don't have any sales tax due for the period, you're still required to file a return and just put no tax due. Because if you don't file a return, it's going to look like you may have had tax due and you didn't pay it. So even if you don't have any, let's say you just started a business and your store didn't collect any money because you had no sales, you still have to file the sales tax return and just put no tax due. What if you decide you don't want to do business anymore? Should you just leave the country and not tell us? No. You should file a final return and return your sales tax certificate of authority. Unfortunately, a lot of people just move. They move to other states or they move out of the country, and they don't tell the tax department. So what happens is it looks like you're still in business. The problem is, what if you come back in 10 years and you open a business? When you open a business again, it's going to look like you had 10 years' worth of taxes you weren't paying. So you want to make sure that you tell us that you're going to be done doing business in New York. These are the common certificates you see. They're resale certificates, exemption certificates, nonprofit certificates, different certificates. There's different exemption certificates. If you're making a single purchase of one item or a blanket item, you can actually have an exemption certificate of that. Remember, any exemption certificates are 90 days. What about record-keeping rules? I'm going to go to our website so you could see the importance of record-keeping rules. So, as I stated, our website is very, very important because it provides you with all the information I'm providing you today. Keeping good books and records is important, right? Because everybody's scared when they get a knock at the door and it's an auditor. So even if you start a business and you don't have a fancy computer or anything, you could just go to the store and get a notebook and keep your records in the notebook. So you have to show total sales, taxable sales, purchases by the business, credits, sales and use tax for each. So what should you keep? You must keep records of every sale, the amount of the sale, and the sales tax on the sale. You must retain a copy of each receipt. What if you're providing services, right? You're a housekeeper or something. Just still make sure. We want to know what's coming in the door, and we want to know what's going out the door. So you have to keep good books and records. It's completely important. If you're purchasing anything, so not only should you keep records of the sales, but you have to keep records of what you're purchasing. So keep records of what's subject to tax, what you're purchasing for resale, because you might purchase something from a wholesaler and resell it. You have to keep records of that. Anything that's exempt. What if you have a point of sale system, right? You have everything in the computer. We want to know what items are sold, the selling price, the tax due, the invoice number, the date of sale. So you have to make sure you keep good books and records of everything that's in the point of sale system. Generally speaking, you keep records for 3 years because that's the look-back period for taxes for both the state and federal. Now, as you could see here, so how long should you keep records? As you see here, minimum of 3 years. What is inadequate records? We can't verify the receipts. We can't verify whether the receipts are subject to tax. We can't verify the taxable status of your purchases. You failed to make records available to us. So just as I stated, it's very important to keep good books and records. What is your responsibility? If you're going to be collecting sales tax, remember you have to register as a sales tax vendor. Remember I told you go attain the sales tax certificate of authority. You have to keep that on display. You have to be truthful, collect the taxes due, remit the taxes due, file accurate and complete returns on time, provide records when we ask. So that's very, very important. Sales tax is a trust tax. You're responsible for those records. Remember I showed you how to sales tax web file. You first have to create that online account. Remember, we saw this page here. That's the same page that you saw when I was showing you our actual website. So it's the same exact page. So online services. And then I'm going to go back to our website in a minute because I want to show you, well, right here you could see subscribe. Everybody should subscribe to our subscription service. The reason that's important is that when there are any tax changes, we have press releases, you need information on withholding tax or corporate tax, you basically go to subscribe, you provide your email, and you receive email alerts from us. So you could decide what type of information you want to receive from us and how often you want to receive information. As I stated, if you don't use a tax preparer but you have a computer and you have broadband access, you have to e-file and e-pay. We also have some programs out there to help business owners. What if, for some reason, your business did not pay taxes forever, and we didn't know, we didn't provide you with an audit, the tax department didn't know? You could come forward and tell the tax department, I didn't pay, I need some help. So as long as you meet the criteria that we didn't send you a letter under audit or anything, you'd enter into an agreement with us to pay a percentage of your owed taxes and your future taxes. And when I go back to a website, I'll show you the page for that. And I'm also going to show you the credit information. So we're going to go back to a website. And I'm going to show you 3 important websites. So we're going to start by talking about the Voluntary Disclosure and Compliance Program. So as I said, if you owe back taxes, you basically can go into our website. You cannot be under audit, you cannot have received a bill from us, you cannot be under criminal investigation, and you cannot be seeking to disclose participation in a tax avoidance scheme. And if you meet the criteria, you can submit your information right here. So you can apply online, so you could see here. And what that does is you wait to hear from us. We won't impose any criminal or civil penalties on you. So you can apply online. Next, I'm going to talk about business tax credits. I know people are always interested in tax credits. So as you can see here, we have a lot of credits for businesses. Do you see all of these? So if you decide to have, as you could see here, if you decide to have green energy or solar energy in your building, you could get a tax credit. There's something called the Startup New York program. I don't know if you've seen any commercials for that, tax-free for 10 years. So that means you can align yourself with the academic institution. So basically, if your company aligns yourself with the academic institution, then you're actually eligible to maybe be tax-free for 10 years. So that's very important.